Hey, it's Nicholas here with day 5 of 7 on how to understand and respond to our present moment many-headed monster of planetary mayhem that we know as the meta crisis. So, the narrative that I'm using here sees the meta crisis as the emergence into human experience and activity of this thing that I call the universe scale shadow or USS. And to tell this tale, we need a narrative structure with five um, conceptual structural elements. So one is panpsychism, so that we can give the universe a living conscious mind and unconscious mind. The second is science, to talk about the matter body of the universe, if you like. The third is depth psychology, so that we can talk about shadows, including the universe scale shadow. The fourth is a non-dual awakening spirituality, to give the universe and everybody a means to get out of this dream nightmare that we call reality. And the fifth is an ultimate ground of being beyond the standard true self or one being of non-dual awakening, which is a pivotal sort of explanatory component for understanding how the universe got into this mess in the first place. So today, I'm going to dive back into the hell entangled nightmare of masculine feminine relating, which is also a pivotal piece of the meta crisis. And in this head in the lion's mouth uh, trajectory, I'm going to be focusing on three central pieces of that five element conceptual structure. So that'll be matter, psychology, and psychospirituality.
In episode 1, I developed Class 3 reality theories, with the universe scale shadow or USS as their primary differentiating feature for metacrisis response purposes. In episode 2, I connected the USS to the metacrisis, in particular using a point-like example from US politics. In episode 3, I introduced the ARC, the agency that restructures consciousness, as a feature built into reality exactly in order to respond to USS emergent contexts. And in episode 4, I talked about some current dysfunctions in human metacrisis response. And I left one thread hanging concerning the role of purpose, structure, and function in masculine feminine roles for this work, which is where we'll pick up today. In episode 3, we saw this picture of one form of masculine feminine relating in response to the USS. And towards the end of episode 4, I started responding to the idea that the role assignments in that previous picture are a form of oppression. Appealing first to a womb structure performing a gestation function in service of a procreation team purpose, and then translating that to the purpose of healing and transforming the USS, which calls for entering into what I call the seventh circle of hell to establish a relationship between the USS and the ARC, a function that I conjecture can only be performed by psychospiritually masculine centered configurations. So, yes, to put it mildly, that will take a bit of unpacking. So, let's start with a ridiculously brief précis of my own crude hack of David Data's exquisite and expansive work. He describes the psychospiritual, not the psychological, masculine and feminine in terms of complementary polarities. This work focuses on one lens in particular, feminine love and masculine freedom. To avoid a reductive and fragmenting desecration, it's important to say that in divine or sacred presentations of the psychospiritual masculine and feminine, both poles in any lens are sourced in and emerge from what, for now, I'll just name as the nameless beyond. Data firmly and clearly states that every being, man, woman, not man or woman, has a complete complement of both masculine and feminine aspects. So this is not about saying, for example, women aren't free and men can't love. Now, in his work, Data talks a lot about two specific configurations of masculine and feminine aspects. Although in this work, and perhaps his, there are actually an infinite variety. One configuration has a feminine love core and a masculine freedom outer. The other reverses core outer aspects. Now, what defines outer versus core is that an outer can be temporarily surrendered to another, while a core or center cannot. And now, finally, we get back to our team quest with the USS. The deepest level of the USS, its seventh circle, if you like, places this condition on relationship with it. You can't come in if you're carrying any love, which obviously bars a feminine-centered being from entering, because such a one can't be anything else at heart other than love. But a masculine-centered being can, at least transiently. Giving up his love outer, he can descend into the depths of hell, so to speak, to share the ark with the USS. So just a quick aside here, the masculine has been excoriated culturally recently for its toxicity, and rightly in many cases. But here, I want to point to a completely unappreciated fact. The ability to leave love is required for that toxicity, but it's also required for a sacred submission the feminine literally cannot complete. Almost every capacity is double-edged. Right now, at least in the context of this work, I think we could use a little more honor and celebration for the sacred positives of masculine-centered beings, so we can flesh out a balanced view. Finally, returning to alleged oppression, I certainly am saying there are cases where certain structures are required, and I could be wrong on my view of what needs to happen with the USS and the kind of structure required. But I want to finally amplify something I said last time, that it's simply not possible that function structure in this work could be oppressing either female biology or psychological identification as a woman. Because being able to take a masculine-centered configuration is entirely a psychospiritual issue, completely independent, in my view, from both biology and gender identification. So I guess instead of women, please stop claiming oppression where there is none, it would have been more accurate to say beings who seem to be factually unable to take a masculine-centered configuration, please stop seeing this work as oppressing you. Because none of this is about women or females or any matter biology or psychological gender identity. Phew. Okay, now that we're standing firmly in the domain of structure, next time I'll link this work to Daniel Schmachtenberger's quest for the form or structure of a third attractor, leading to this larger picture of a work we only really sample homeopathically in this brief video series. A picture which then admits the re-entry of masculine and feminine aspects, and then, finally, turns into what I see as a vision worthy of the name. The return of the entire universe to source emergence relationship with the nameless beyond.
Again, it's Nicholas. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time in the nameless beyond.